What's up, math fans? Before you watch this video, I really hope you saw the first video, which is adding polynomials. And now we're going to get to subtracting. You've got to know the rules for addition before you can even consider subtraction. But there are a couple of ways to cheat the rules for subtraction. The main way is just use a calculator. The thing with the calculator is people sometimes forget if you press the minus sign, it's not the same as pressing the negative sign. In some of my videos I've said a minus and a negative is the same thing. Yes, it does the same thing, but that's when you're doing it mentally, it does the same thing. But if there's a minus and a negative, then you have to do it twice. So on the calculator, you press minus, which is on the side of your calculator, and a negative, which is on the bottom of your calculator. They're two different things, and people sometimes still confuse them when they're in a rush. That's the next thing. Looks easy, don't rush. I can rush because I've done it 1,000 times. Don't rush. Let's start with baby subtraction. 8 minus 5, 3. Now, I know you know the answer, but I want you to think about how you got there. So whatever works for you, if you drew 8 things and took away 5, or if you started at 8 on a number line and then went backwards 5, understanding that subtraction means going backwards on a number line or left on a number line. Whatever works for you. There is a rule that I'm going to teach you here. When you're subtracting polynomials, the safest thing to do is keep, change, change. Some people say keep, change, opposite. So you're looking at something before the minus sign and then something after the minus sign. Usually there's a term before and a term after. So if my rule is keep, change, change, a lot of people memorize the rule and don't know how to use it. What you keep is whatever's before the minus sign. You change the minus to addition, and then you change whatever's after the subtraction sign to the opposite sign. So another way people explain that is add the opposite. So I'm going to keep the 8. The 8 starts the same. And then I'm going to add, change my subtraction to addition, add the opposite of whatever comes next. That's a 5. It becomes the opposite, which is a negative 5. I add the opposite. And in my last video explaining how to do this, the signs are different, so you really subtract. Well, no surprise there, you really subtract, and you get 3. Take the sign of the bigger number. Okay, add the opposite. That's basically what keep, change, change means. Add the opposite. 5 minus 8, what do you think that is? You can look at it, you can type it in the calculator. Hopefully you know that it is negative 3. But to prove it, or to practice, I'm going to still add the opposite. So I start with my 5, and then I add the opposite of 8, which is negative 8. And 5 plus negative 8 is negative 3. So I was right. This is just practicing adding the opposite. And a lot of people are too lazy to practice that. And then when it gets difficult, oh no, what do I do? Always start from baby numbers so you understand the procedure before jumping into the more difficult stuff. 5x minus negative 8x. Finally, I got work to do. A lot of people, after they see this enough, they say, "Ooh, I see 2 minus signs. I really know that the 2 minus signs kind of transform into a plus sign," and you add. And that's absolutely correct. Again, I add the opposite. So this is really saying keep the 5x the same, change this minus sign to adding, and then change that negative to positive. So I'm going to add the opposite, and 5x plus 8x is actually 13x. So even though we are always subtracting, the directions or the instructions would be subtract, the rules for subtraction dictate that you change it around and then do what works out. So here I did subtract, here I did subtract, all of a sudden I'm subtracting and yet I'm adding. Actually, yeah, that's what happens when you subtract the negative, you actually add. Because it's like not, this is like saying don't go backwards 8. So instead of not going backwards 8, instead of going backwards 8, you do the opposite, you go forwards 8. You get to 13x. All right? Again, if the 5 different ways I just explained don't work for you, just simply type 5 minus negative 8. Type all those buttons and you'll get 13. The fact that you can't put x in the calculator, please don't. Hopefully you saw the video in like terms already, so you know you just combine the coefficients. Coefficients go in the calculator, variables go in your brain, and you just keep the variable the same. 13x. And now, finally, some real math. I'm going to add the opposite. Here, I gotta give me the opposite, or give you the opposite of everything, all the terms inside. People are too quick to go like this and say, oh, the opposite right there, and then not switch this one. And that is a rookie mistake. It's carelessness, it's you're rushing, you think you got it, but you didn't take your time. So don't forget to also change that sign there. People get used to it and they kind of scribble the opposite signs on top. That's how I do it. But if you want to show your work, it's probably better and clearer for you. So here's what you're doing. 5x minus 9y stays the same. Everything before the minus sign stays the same. Oh, but Professor Noy, there's a minus sign there. No. This counts as an entire term. This counts as an entire term. The minus sign or the subtraction sign is here. This is the directions. This is telling you to subtract. So you keep that and you subtract this. So let me do my rule now, which is add the opposite. So I kept that. Now I change this to addition, and then I'm going to write the opposite. I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to change this negative 8x to positive 8x. Positive, just to remind you. And that positive 2y is now a negative 2y. This is a basic combining like terms question where you want to combine like terms. Like I said in my last video, you can kind of line them up underneath. You can draw squares and circles and triangles and match up your like terms. Or you can just connect them with a line like this. 5x plus 8x is 13x. What do you mean plus? I thought this was subtraction. It was subtraction. We converted it. Now do what the signs tell you to do. There's a positive 5, there's a positive 8. That together gives you positive 13. There's a negative 9, and there's a negative 2. But remember, now I changed it to addition. So if you have a negative 9 and a negative 2, that is going to give you negative 11. And there is your final answer for that. Again, you can just cheat, go straight to the calculator. From the beginning, type 5 minus negative 8. And immediately it gives you the 13 without doing the state change. Just know what you're typing. Negative 9 minus 2. And immediately it will give you negative 11. Alright? So there are ways to avoid this, but you have to be very careful of what you're typing. Here, I'm going to put this under here, but I'm going to change everything. So I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to change this minus sign to plus. And then I'm going to write the opposite of this, the opposite of this, and the opposite of this. Everything inside changes. So this negative x squared, I'm going to write it here as positive x squared. This 2x, I'm going to now write it as negative 2x. And this negative 5 becomes plus 5. And now that I've changed everything, I'm now using the rules for addition, no longer subtraction. So x squared plus x squared is 2x squared. 7 plus negative 2 is positive 5x. Negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. And that's your final answer. Again, you can just go to the calculator. There's a 1 here and a 1 here. So I would do 1 minus negative 1. It'll give you 2 without showing this step. 7 minus positive 2. It'll give you 5 without showing that step, etc. So whatever works for you. If your teacher's asking you to show your work, show your work. If you're getting it by just typing the right buttons, type the right buttons. Get the right answer. Thanks for watching. See ya.